it's easy to sit in a bad mood, like it's easy to just be like, well, that thing bugged me and I'm allowed to be upset about it, so I'm going to be. It takes more effort and more consciousness and more integration to be like, yes, that thing happened, that is bugging you, but can you remember that like you're the dictator of your own reality and there are 100 other things happening right here and now that you could look at instead, so that your day can continue to progress in a way that is good.
I love my higher self aspect of myself, my spiritual being. I love it. But my human aspect, I haven't been giving it so much love. So now for me to integrate those two and become one and actually anchor that spiritual being in this human body, in this personality named Tenshy, it will not land until my vessel, my body, is full of love.
Welcome back, friends. My name is Kia, and this is my beautiful partner, co-patriot, companion, I don't know, human being.
And my name is Tenshy.
And together we are Inspired Alignment. This is the podcast where you can find all things weird, like whatever I just said, things about co-living, things about community, things about spirituality, parenthood, motherhood,
household,
energy, trying to figure out how to do this beautiful life in a more cohesive, more harmonious, different, but beautiful way.
Yeah, definitely breaking the paradigms that we have been living in for the latest hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And feeling inspired on how we can bring a new consciousness, which we call heaven to earth.
Yeah, we're into 2024 now. And like well in somehow. Not well, but like it's upon us.
Yeah.
And it feels like a very big year where somehow, I don't know, the calling feels different. I was talking on my personal Instagram the other day about how somehow it feels like those who are open already know all the things. And I don't mean all the things, but like messages of let's level up, messages of how to regulate your nervous system, messages on somehow being a more conscious human being, messages on living for yourself, messages like we've heard so many things about how to do this life different. And I feel like most people that I interact with in my social circle or my professional circle or any of the circles that I am in, people are like, oh yeah, like I know the things, the somehow self-help things. But I was saying the other day to Tenshy and to a couple other people that this feels like the year to be like, okay, it's great that you know all these things, but what have you done with this knowledge that you now have? Have you integrated any of it? Have you made any changes at all? Especially like lasting changes, It's January. It's easy at the beginning of a new year to set resolutions and set new goals and get yourself a couple good weeks under your belt of a new habit, and then things fall off. So when we come across new information that we're like, oh, that sounds good, I'm going to do that. We do it for a little while, but like somehow this feels like a year of real integration, making changes and adjustments at like a core level to how we do things somehow.
Yeah. Actually, as I hear you talking and you mentioned the word ideas, it's like, yeah, the mind can get so fully loaded with knowledge, and intellectual comprehension of the things that we are listening outside and that resonates with us somehow, how we keep it in our mind. As something to add to our routine or something to do differently. And sometimes I can see it in me, like I need to talk, and I can see again, like for me, it's all about the trip and the travel through the chakras. It's like how the consciousness is coming through the crown chakra and sitting somehow in the mind for the mind to process what that means. But the work itself happens at the heart.
Yeah.
It's like I can talk a lot about everything that I intellectually have, or the messages that I receive from the other side, kind of thing, and it's all here somehow. And then I make it sit in my heart, or I just talk nonstop about that, for me to understand exactly what all that means. And then I sit it in my heart, like, okay, now what resonates and what doesn't, what I let go and what I decide to keep. And now if we continue going down, it's like the action, how we can ground it on this planet. And the solar plexus is like letting you know, like, yes, you can do it. And the second chakra is like, feel the pleasure, follow the joy that we have been talking about. And the first chakra is like, make it a reality, make it part of your reality right now. So I think the integration is letting it go floor to floor, from the top of floor kind of thing to
Yeah.
the ground. But what does integration mean? Like, I would like to know, what does that mean to you? Because I know what it means to me, but we always have that contrast of understanding, and it's always enriching. So let's just share with our audience what integration means to each of us.
Yeah, like I believe for me, my understanding and interpretation of the word integration is pretty much kind of what you're saying. Like, as I was introducing, like, it's great to read all the books, and it's great to listen to all the podcasts that are out there, and it's great to fill your brain and your mind with the messages that you find uplifting or helpful or insightful, and make a little to-do list of the changes you want to make in your life. But the truth of everything is that we individually live in our reality, and our individual reality looks different from anybody else's. Like, we live in a household of 8 people, and every one of our realities is so different from the other people that we live with in the same household. And obviously our household is very different to the households on either side of us, our neighbors. In the city where we live, or the city that we live nearby to, everyone's realities are different, countries, all those things. So everyone has to take the information that they choose to input into their minds and figure out, how does that feel for me? Do I value certain parts of it? Am I valuing certain parts of it because of ways that I was raised or things that I was taught to believe? It's really taking that information and figuring out if it works for you, and if it truly works for you, or if it works for a version of you that already exists. The version of you that maybe you are aspiring to become may need to take a different part of that information and put it into practice. And I think being willing to try putting all the different things into practice, not all of them, I shouldn't say that, like putting all the things that you're choosing to take from that information into practice, being willing to say, okay, I took that piece of information, I thought it meant this because of where I stand, I've done whatever the example is for a month now, and it's actually not working for me. It's either keeping me where I'm at and I'm wanting to elevate, or it's actually taking me backwards. And being willing to adjust as you go along your journey and your path, and almost calibrating as well as integrating. Like, you have to calibrate your system somehow by trying all the different variables and getting it to work the way that you would like it to for the moment.
Yeah.
I feel like somehow I want to stress that life is so transient and ever changing. So I don't know, it might be just me projecting, but I try not to get too attached to what I'm trying and what I'm doing and the way that I'm living my life, because who knows?
Yeah, it's always changing. Yeah. Actually, life is what happens right here, right now. So if the more present we are in the present moment, and we walk our own unique process in ourselves to find that integration, to bring all that intellectual knowledge into the heart, into the doing, and finding our own coherence. Because what I hear is like the calibration is like, yeah, it's just finding your own coherence. And sometimes I am coherent and sometimes I am not. But the more present I am and the less projection I have in the time, or the less memory I have of the person that I used to be or that I'm willing to let go, and the more I focus on the game that I am playing right now, then the easier it will be the the opportunity for creating our own reality, for bringing the ideas into form somehow, into like whatever we are listening to is like daring to play, like how much I dare to play right now, right here, right now. And yes, whatever works today, and if it's a win, yay, yay for you. If it's not a win, yay for you too, because having the contrast is also a good part of the process of recalibrating yourself and integrating things too. Sometimes we hear ideas like, oh, that idea sounds like super cool, and it sounds like something that I would like to try. But then how many times we try to do those things thinking that is the best, and when we sit with it, we go and we put ourselves through it. It's like, oh, this is not me. This is not authentic for me. Yes, it sounds good, and somehow it's like it could be two ways. Like, what's wrong with me? That awesome idea is not sitting very well with me, or just saying, yeah, awesome, and accepting our own uniqueness. And that is, I think, part of the general integration now, like knowing that one cool idea, one perfect idea doesn't fit two cool people. And if it fits one of them, it's not necessarily that you're not cool or you're not like, it just, actually the way I see it is like it's an opportunity for me to wear it my own way kind of thing. It's like, yeah, the idea can be great, but it doesn't have to be manifested in reality in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that is the trick in all of this. It's like how those cool ideas can be manifested in this realm in hundreds and thousands and millions of ways, because we are all so different. And that is part of more integration too. Honoring who we are, honoring where we are at, and not forcing ourselves either.
Yeah. At the same time, I was sat here thinking like another part of integration for me is like actually doing the thing. I don't know if this happens for you, but I would describe myself as like a positive person and someone who loves to sit in gratitude rather than think about what I don't like, and just kind of am that way. But the amount of times I catch myself in like a mood or in a position where like I'm not feeling gratitude and I'm like very much choosing.
Rude or en route? Rude?
In a mood.
Oh, in a mood. Okay.
Yeah. And I am choosing to like keep looking at the thing that's bugging me. And I have this thing inside of me that is like, okay, like, yeah, that thing is bugging you, but can you not like let it go? Can you not use what you know to like pivot and find something else to look at over here that does please you or bring you joy? And the amount of times I find myself being like, yeah, I could do that, but like not today. Like I just want to sit in this grouchy mood today. And I have this like inner battle somehow of like, do I sit in here and do I honor this? Or do I pivot? Because for me, integrating is like, I know what to do in those moments where I don't feel great. And I have a little voice somehow in me telling me like, okay, yeah, this thing is crappy, but the reality is you can't do anything about it. It doesn't feel like a big feeling that needs to be honored and like given a seat at the table. It's just a little thing. And I'm choosing to like let that little thing dictate my day when I know better. So the integration is like, why do I take the easy way out? It's easy to sit in a bad mood, you know? Like it's easy to just be like, well, that thing bugged me and I'm allowed to be upset about it, so I'm going to be. It takes more effort and more consciousness and more integration to be like, yes, that thing happened. That is bugging you. But can you remember that like you're the dictator of your own reality and there are 100 other things happening right here and now that you could look at instead? so that your day can continue to progress in a way that is good. Yeah, so it's like this balance between, like, I can't remember what you said before I came into this, but like resting in the things that don't work out as well. Like, I think there's just levels to it. There's bigger situations of contrast where, like, I tried something, it didn't really work out the way that I thought it would, and by no means is that negative, as you are saying. Like, that's just contrast, and we are grateful too for contrast, because it's a, hey, I tried it that way, this is what I don't like about that and why I wouldn't choose that again, so next time I'm going to pick it a different way. But there's those little things in days that are somehow, they don't feel so little in the moment, and they really can dictate the whole outcome of your day. But for me, like, I know if I'm in alignment with my whole higher being in the way that I want and choose and aim and desire to live my life and move forward, being able to pivot from those small things is what serves me best. And I know that, and I still sometimes don't do it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's like I'm acting completely out of alignment with myself, basically out of laziness. And I'm not sure that's the right word, but it is easier to just stay in like a kid pouting in the corner kind of mode, you know? Like having to pick up my boots and be like, okay, I can go and do something else. It takes a little bit more effort. But in the grand scheme of my life, takes me further down the path that I want to go. So somehow integrating is like making the choice that is in alignment for you in the big picture, even if in the little moment it would be easier to do the thing that takes you out of alignment somehow.
Yeah. Well, as I hear you talking and I try to integrate your words into my being and my way of being and seeing things and thinking, maybe because that's where I am at, and that doesn't mean that is the process. Like, for the viewers, you will all have your own processes of integration, I think, like happens to us, to both of us. But the way I kind of take what you're saying, there has to be an integration of, you said, when you are in your higher self mode. And in my mind, it's like, okay, what does that mean for me, being in my higher self mode? And for many years, for a long time, my higher self mode has been that spiritual aspect of me. Like, I sometimes feel like maybe the Gemini in me is like split in two, and I'm like the spiritual being and the human being in here. And I now have to integrate both. But I love my higher self aspect of myself, my spiritual being. I love it. But my human aspect, I haven't been giving it so much love. So now for me to integrate those two and become one and actually anchor that spiritual being in this human body, in this personality named Tenshy, it will not land until my vessel, my body, is full of love, because my higher self is full of love. So I have to love my human aspect in order for us to anchor and be, yes, we can be friends. We are vibrating in the same level. And what happens if I separate them and I put them apart, and I take the spiritual aspect and I leave it as it is, and I take care of this and say, like, okay, I'm gonna love my human aspect, and I'm going to raise its vibration as much as I can so it can meet my higher self. I have to do a lot of work in terms of accepting who this human is, accepting that this human being has a lot of tools, a lot of knowledge too, because I rely a lot of my spiritual wisdom kind of thing. But I also, as a human, have more wisdom that is not precisely from the spiritual world. So I need to honor that. I need to honor my capacities. I need to honor my limits. And overall, I need to fall in love with this human being that I am. So it's like, why is this important? Like, you may ask yourself, like, why is this important in a conversation about integration? Because the way I see integration for most humans is like, okay, the self-development and the self-help and everything in my mind is like feeding that spiritual aspect of ourselves. And for many years, I haven't like, yeah, I know. But I know, and I don't take care of this. It's like, oh, finally, this one is very happy, like my spiritual being is very happy because finally I am finding more people that understands kind of what I see. But I am so far behind with this one in comparison to other humans because I still am dealing with I'm not good enough, that I don't love myself, what's wrong with me, like all those things. And I somehow want to catch up with all that. So the integration in me is also again happening kind of different.
Yeah.
I don't know how to see it. I don't know how to go from that idea forward. Maybe if you can.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it is different, but it's also sort of the same. The way that I think about it is the spiritual being that you speak of is, source energy, unity consciousness, all of that, like where we all come from. And you have a very pure, very intact connection to all of that still. But my belief is that source and the divinity and whatever, like there's millions of different words that we can use to describe that, but the beautiful energy that is outside of the physical world, where we all come from, looks at humans, you, me, every single one of us, and sees perfection. And so when you, your spiritual self, has your mind looking at your human as anything less than perfection, it's like, not that it can get sad because it doesn't feel in the same way that we do, but it's like you do not see the way that I see, and therefore we're not aligned. Like you said, they can't be integrated because your spiritual self is like, the human that you are is perfect. The human that Kia is perfect. And any of those moments where we don't see ourselves as perfect is a misalignment. And I'm not even sure that the spiritual world would use the word perfect. It's just, as humans, we're obsessed with, you do that and I don't like it and it's wrong, and I do it this way and it's right that way, or I do this thing and I don't like it and it's wrong, but I have to work on it and I have to make it right, and I have to change it and I have to make it right. And if you would change that, we could make it right. And if everyone would just do things right, we could all be happier. Yeah. And the spiritual collective that we come from is like, just do the things.
Yeah.
And do the things as much in alignment as you can. So for me, it's like I know that I make choices out of alignment sometimes. And it means that, like, that's what I'm working on integrating somehow, is like what I know as the connection between the one consciousness and the body that I have. We don't have the same disconnect as your spiritual self and your physical self, but they're both kind of the same. Any moment of calling something somehow wrong and calling something somehow right is just a misalignment. And I think being able to integrate the information that we know into the actions that we take, but also switching and somehow working on the mindset that, like, things are not really wrong in our own self. Like, we're very hard on our own selves in the way that we do things. Yeah. We call a lot of the things that we do as humans wrong. Like, that's what I was kind of doing, saying when I act in a different way, like I'm being somehow wrong. And you're saying me as when you talk about yourself, you're like, Tenshy as the human that she is somehow wrong, not enough, not this. And we also point at every other human in our life, depending on our mood, and tell them what they're doing wrong. And we need to somehow integrate more love, more grace, more acceptance for everybody's path, and realize that it's not so much right and wrong. It's more so, let's, I don't know, come back to our own personal alignment, which then lets us become a more smooth connection to all that is already. And yeah, like just that perfect state of consciousness.
Yeah, I think you said the word mindset and how we are perceived from the spiritual world as humans in our humanity and humanness, actually. And how many times you have been calling me, it's like, that's a story in your mind, that's a story in your mind. And we have talked about replace that story, replace that story. And sometimes I'm like, how am I going to replace that story? How am I going to work on my mindset?
Yeah.
And the vision that I just had right now is like, listen to your higher self and choose that voice to be the voice in your mind.
Yeah.
Choose the love that your higher self is feeling for you and not the limited love that other humans have given you, because most of the time that little voice in our minds is the voice of society, is the voice of the teacher, is the voice of the parents, is the voice of the grandparents or the church or the, like, can you just please realize that from that human perspective, the vision of who you are is very limited.
Yeah.
But if you can raise your vision, your understanding of the world, if, for example, me, and I know there are many other humans there that are very aware of their spiritual being, and they are not so connected with that human aspect. I know that if we choose to see ourselves from that spiritual being and giving love is like a mutual love. I love myself, but I love myself. I don't even know how to put it into words. It's like the human mind finally opens up to be. This is the vision that I'm having. It's like water flowing through rocks in a waterfall. Like how the waterfall comes and covers the entire rocks, or all the rocks and the soil and the grass and the moss and everything. Earth allows it to just, cover me up.
Yeah.
Can I just relax enough and letting myself be showered with my spiritual being? So whenever you are showered and you are relaxed, you will be absorbing the water. And then I see how the integration will be able to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the integration of those two. And the next step will be acting, manifesting your reality, being who you are meant to be, without being so disconnected. And from that second step, you will be bringing heaven to earth. It's like, and I think we were talking about that the previous episode. It's like, if there is no love for self, then there will not be able to be heaven on earth. So I've been going through that for a while.
Yeah, and the other side of it, which I think is somehow more where I'm at, as you were talking, I was realizing, like, yours is that self-love. And I'm not saying there's only two camps, but I wonder if a lot of you guys would follow close, like feel more closely related to either working on your self-love, or I think where I'm at is when I have those moments where, like, I'm choosing to feel pooey about what's happening in my day, it's usually because somebody else is doing something that I'm deciding is wrong. And if I had the ability to see them the way that higher collective saw them, it would be like, no, what they're doing is not wrong. Like, you don't know the reason for what they're doing. And if you had the consciousness and had integrated enough to be able to be like, what they're doing is their own thing. And if it's bothering you, then just either sit and figure out why it's bothering you and see what maybe you can bring to light, or realize that it's really insignificant and pivot and like mind your own business essentially,
Yeah.
and like let them do their thing. And so yours is about like seeing yourself the way that source and higher collective sees you, whereas I think where I'm at is both, but more so right now, can I see others and can I see my external reality the way that source sees it, which is like everybody is doing what they truly think is the best in their circumstances with the information that they have and the amount of it that they've integrated. And the same grace that I always preach for people to afford to themselves, can I afford them that same grace and live and let live on some level?
Yeah.
So there's like two paths as always to take.
Always.
And like I said, there's infinitely more than two paths. It's just these conversations are between the two of us, and our paths are always almost kind of mirrors. So we hyper focus on the two that we have.
Yes.
There are
Actually,
others.
maybe we are trying to play with ways on how to record the episode today, or film the episode today. And we were talking about maybe the possibility of a cliffhanger.
Okay.
So I am receiving a message, like a vision right now, and it has to be with the unity consciousness and the idea of community that we are looking forward to
Okay.
to build. So I think we're going to leave it until here, and then we are going to continue our conversation on unity consciousness and community living.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a brief concept of what does integration actually mean? The feeling that 2024 is the year of integrating rather than continuously filling our minds. Like I truly believe in my core that we already know, and I think if you're watching this video, you already know the things that somehow you need. And it's time to start integrating and start doing and start showing yourself grace, showing your external reality grace. Stop identifying things as wrong and right and being hyper focused on all that, and start seeing yourself from the higher perspective and seeing others from the higher perspective.
Yeah, and accepting who you are. That is a big, big, big thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know if you can leave us in your comments. Do you think your path is more like, as Kia said, more similar to my path, or more similar to Kia's path? I would love, love, love to hear that, because I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So until next time, next episode, and I know you're going to be looking forward to that. I love you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye.